Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Leathercraft Community Podcast Show. My name is Steve Amplew. On today's episode, I'm sitting with a gentleman who braids rawhide and also leather, and he is one of the many people and one of the few people left in America that is helping keeping this braiding art form alive and well in the States. So without further ado, I want to introduce you guys to Mr. Ron Titus. Ron, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I wanted to start right away and ask you, how did you get started in leathercraft?
When I was a young lad, I was interested in it, and I was also playing baseball, and I wanted to play baseball, so everything else went aside, and I got released from baseball. I guess I wasn't good enough to go to the big leagues, and I said to heck with the whole world, and I joined the Navy. So I had 22 years later, I get out of the Navy. I worked for Department of Defense after that for a while and everything. And so I had a big gap in my leather work. I dabbled with it, but I didn't do anything of any consequence. Once I got out of once I retired, maybe about 10 years before I retired, I was really into it heavy. And that would put me somewhere in a gazillion years worth of doing it, you know. And I don't really know how many. But I've been doing it for quite a while. I have went from leather to rawhide, and I started making Riatas. Riata is a Spanish word for lasso. I guess we could say it that way. A lot of people don't know what a Riata is. And I kept at it, and then I had a friend of mine who was a saddle maker. Gary McClintock was his name. Gary's passed on. He's not with us anymore. I miss him dearly. And he kept after me. Well, you're making these Riatas, Ron. Why don't you get into it, make a set of reins? And he knew what he was doing. He got me to make a set of reins, and I was hooked. Mm-hmm. And so I've stayed pretty much with the rawhide. I still do leather work. I like to make knives, and I make my own sheaths. But a lot of times I use rawhide. I've got a couple of rawhide sheaths I've made. I use rawhide I don't sew sometimes, I just lace around the edges of the sheath, and I use rawhide for that. But anyway, with me, it's something I really enjoy doing. I've had the privilege of working with a lot of people who know what they're doing. Some of the guys from the TCAA, Traditional Cowboy Arts Association, have helped me. And to be specific, Mel Lawson has helped me tremendously. I made a piece one time, and I know what Mel was doing. He said, "Ron, that's really not a good piece, throw it away." And I said, "Oh, okay, whatever you say, Mel." And I knew what he was doing, but by doing that, he gave me the drive to keep on it.
Yeah.
And I'm not a quitter. I wouldn't quit until I came to where I'm at, and Mel has told me I've come a long way from when he first started with me, or when I first started, and I went to him.
Yeah.
And so that makes me very proud and makes me real happy that I have his acclaim with somebody with his skill. I mean, he's one of the top 5 braiders in the TCA fellas. You know, there's Nate Walden, Leland Hensley, and I don't know the names. I know the names, but I don't think I know 2 of the other guys. Oh, I got to remember Pablo Lozano. He comes up from Argentina. He's a superb braider also. All of those guys are. I don't claim to be in their class or anything like that, but I enjoy doing it still.
Yeah.
So anyway, so now I'm to the point where I'm teaching classes and teaching other people how to braid and different knots and whatever goes into it. I've been keeping them. I've got 4 people now, I think it is, that have been with me for about 3 years, and 3 or 4 years, and I've kept them on the beginner stuff. I like to go with. I've got an example of it here. GIMP. It's plastic stuff that you get in the craft shops. It's a lot cheaper than building up a piece of rawhide and ruining it and then throwing it away, and it's better for practice because you can pull it apart and retie it. And then I take them from that, I take them into kangaroo, and we stay in kangaroo for quite a while. This is the way I teach my classes now, remember. and then we go into the rawhide. And I've got a couple, 3, 4 of them now that are getting ready to go into the rawhide, and I'll be taking them to that level in Prescott next. I think it's next February.
Next February, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you happen to have any of your first projects, like those reins that Gary made you make, or anything early on?
No, Gary took the reins and sold them. Yeah. And I was really amazed that they sold. You know, in those days, we weren't getting thousands of dollars for a set of reins. They were like $150 or something, you know. And it takes, and it was my first time. I think it probably took me a whole gaggle, bunch of hours, long time to make them. So I never could see that we got paid the level where my labor would come into it. Am I making sense when I say that? I hope.
Yep. Can you talk about the 3 materials again? What were the 3? What was that very first one you mentioned about the plastic? And then there was the...
This is, like I said, you buy this at craft stores, at the hobby stores.
Yep.
Okay, and it's plastic. It comes on a roll, and I think it's about 50 to 75 feet worth of roll. This happens to be 3/16. No, I'm sorry, about maybe 1/8.
Yep.
And I recommend it because it's so forgiving. And you can tie a knot with it and look like, oh my goodness, that knot, I'm beautiful. I know what I'm doing. You know, that kind of, it really gives you good positive feedback.
Yeah.
And then we go to the kangaroo. Okay, and the kangaroo is pretty much the same way of the gimp, but you have to do some preparation with the kangaroo.
Okay.
What I like to say that we do is turn it over, and I call it cornering. Some people call it beveling, but bevel the rough side or the fat side of the hide, and then don't bevel the top side, the hair side.
And that helps it when it
Helps
fits
it
together?
lay flat when you braid it.
Got it.
Okay, and then the rawhide we
Bevel the
bevel
top?
it. We bevel it on the top side, the hair side.
That's what I thought.
That's what I was trying to
Yeah.
say. We don't do it on the bottom. Okay.
And why is that?
Because of, I really don't. Let me think about it. It might make it too soft on the corners, and it might fray.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm not saying that as a gospel, but I'm just saying that's what I think it might be.
Yeah, because I was unsure because I know that you bevel the top, but
Yes.
not the bottom, and I don't
Well,
know why.
The top one is because when you come in and braid, you're laying over.
Yep.
Okay. Now I don't corner the kangaroo because this is a personal thing. I don't like the look of it. It's got 2 stripes going down the hide, down the string, and it comes out. It looks. I just don't care for it, so I don't do it.
Now, what tools do you use when you are working with your braiding?
Well, over the years, I have developed many tools that I like. But when I was beginning, they're over there. I began with actually, Gary and he got me going on it, doing it this way. We had a stump and a pocket knife and a block of wood. And the braiders out there will know what I'm talking about. And you would stick the pocket knife in, you put your blade up to get the width, anchor the wood piece of block there, and then pull your hide through, and it gives you either the 1.5 inch if you're pulling a fresh hide, or down to, once you've got the 1.5 hide strings, you can go down to 1/8 inch or 3/16 or whatever, 5/16 if you're making a Riata, or whatever you want. And that was done with a pocket knife, and a very sharp pocket knife, by the way.
Yep.
And a stump and a block. I've said that already, but then once I decided to really get serious about it, I use an awl. I use what's Steve Derricott's Lace Master, which is, to me, you'll take that away from me on my deathbed, and you might have a fight then. And then the skiver, I use the Osborne 86 skiver, but as we'll probably see later, I've got one of the old time skivers.
Mm-hmm.
I gave that to Bruce Johnson. He took it and redid it all for me. He
Beautiful.
probably doesn't even remember. He does so many of them.
Yeah.
But he did do it for me, And I use it. I still use it.
He's a friend of the podcast. He's been on here before, so he does.
But those two, the 86 and the old one, they're splitters, and I call the Lace Master what the name of it is. It's a Lace Master.
Okay.
And that means it's making the laces, the strings. If you want to use 1/8 inch, or you want to use 3/32 or 1/32 or whatever you would for your thickness, you would use the Osborne splitter, and then you would cut the width of your string with the Lace Master.
Gotcha. Let's talk about knots. There's so many beautiful knots, and
Can I
you just
reach over and
yeah,
grab
you can reach over and grab one. But let's talk about like how some of these knots look and like what their purpose is and how you make them, because they are just gorgeous.
This knot is a practice. It's very long. It's longer than you would make, I believe. I think this is about 9 inches, and I would make a Bozal nose button about 7.5 inches. But I like to go past, when I'm practicing, I like to go past the actual length, and I might take another knot and say if you look at Bruce Grant's book, he calls it a cowboy knot.
Okay.
And it's about that long.
Yeah.
So what's that, 3 inches? Actually, cowboy knot can be any length you want it.
Okay.
Okay. And I sit down and I practice these. And I use the GIMP because it's inexpensive. And as I get better with the knot, here's an example of a cowboy knot right here, long knot, whatever they call it. 23-part, 6-bite, long pineapple knot. This knot here. It's a complicated knot. If you take a longer knot like this, what you'll do, and I'm going to get into your basic knots now and then explain what you do with these.
Okay.
The basic knot that I teach is a Spanish ring knot. It's a very simple knot. When you get good at it, you can do it less than 2 minutes. The next knot that I go into is the Turk's head herringbone. Okay, the herringbone goes up and down like this.
Yep.
Through the knot. And then the next one I go into is the gaucho, where this here turns to the parallel. Okay? That's a gaucho knot.
Hey, y'all, I want to talk to you about the very first sponsor for the Leathercraft Community Podcast Show, and it is Leather Machine Company. If you are looking to upgrade your workshop or to speed up the process on making items, then look no further than Leather Machine Co. They have various sewing machines of multi-purpose needs, along with leather cutting and splitting machines. Check out their website or give them a call for more information. Now, let's go back to the show. You know, when people start braiding, and there are mistakes and some pitfalls that they encounter, can you give us some tips, or people who are watching who are getting into this, what can you recommend that they avoid doing to get just, because you don't want them to be so discouraged, you know?
Right. The first thing I would say is don't let yourself get discouraged. I got discouraged. I was making Riatas, and I started making reins, and we were doing 12 and 16 strings and such as that. And I would get mixed up, and I hate to braid through something and get to the end and see I made a mistake way back at the beginning, have to unbraid everything. I do, but I hate it. That's part of the discourage I'm talking about. Don't get discouraged. Stick with it. When I was first started and I got into it, I was having trouble. I get so mad, I'd throw stuff across the shop, and bounce it off the wall and what have you. And then I'd go pick it up and I'd start over again. Because I'm not a quitter. I wouldn't quit. And then one day, the door opened for me. Okay? I stepped through the doorway and I was off to the races. And again, I want to mention Mel on that. Mel Lawson, he was instrumental in getting me to go the right direction once I got through the door.
Yeah.
And he was very complimentary. Told me, and just the other day, he told me I've come a long way, baby, as they say. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I would say get yourself good tools. Would you hand me that one's fine. Get yourself good tools. Buy an awl like this one here. You don't have to have the fancy braiding on the handle or anything. But I would say get one of these. When you get to doing it after a while, this is what's called a saddler's awl. Okay, and I just put it in the drill, the cordless drill, and start spinning it, and I sanded it down on my sander to where it comes looking like this. I love the feel of it. It sits in my hand. I can hold it. I can braid with it. And if I mess up, or I need to open a space to braid through, I can open it up, stick the string through, pull it tight, and then mash it back down, because it stays at a same width all the way through the whole point, except at the point. You need to have the point there. Some of them make them, and they go like this. Okay,
Yeah.
they're not that
They
wide,
got a
of course.
really
but
wide taper.
yeah, they've got a taper in them. Okay, that's okay, but you're going to get to a point where this is all you need, and you'll want to make one. And I'm pretty proud of this one. It'll take me a while to do it, but it's got that long knot we were going to talk about, and once you get to that, you make your own, and you feel good about your own self.
Yeah.
Could you hand me the? Yeah. No. There you go. That's it. Okay. I was telling Steve that this is probably the most perfect knot, close to perfection I've ever come on any knot I've ever done. I did it in kangaroo, but it's 12 pass with the gaucho interweave into it. And I'm pretty darn proud of this one. Okay.
It's
but
awesome.
as a beginner, don't expect to do something like this. So what I'm digging into there, don't expect to do more than you can do. Wait, it'll come. The door will open, and you will do it. Yeah. I've had people in my classes call me and say, well, I just don't think it's for me. I just don't think I'm grasping everything. And I tell them, I had one person in particular. This person was ready to quit and everything. I said, no. It was a lady that lived out here by me. I said, just hang in there. I'll stick with you. I'll carry you through all the way. I'll make sure, because people help me. And she's stuck with me now. She's a damn good braider. She does awesome. Real well.
Ron, you are very gracious with your time, and you do a lot of volunteer work with the Boy Scouts of America. Do you want to talk about what you do with those young fellas and what you're teaching them?
Well, in the past, I've taught leather work, I've taught some braiding, and I teach knife making. Okay, but it's very basic knife making, because you have to be very careful. Knife making can be dangerous. I tried to cut these 2 fingers off one time, and I stabbed myself in the thigh with a knife, and it went into my leg about that far, and it cut 2 nerves in there, and I can't feel my leg anymore. So I'm real careful when I teach the Boy Scouts anything, and I don't let them get onto the power tools.
Yeah.
Because that's not something you just walk in and do.
Correct.
Yeah.
And now, speaking of teaching, also, you teach at the trade shows.
Yes.
I haven't taken one of your classes yet. I plan on it, but let's talk about, what do you teach? Is it for intermediate people? Is it for beginners? Do you also teach privately, or do you have classes or other events that you go to?
Okay. Answer the last question first. I'm going to go back.
All right.
No other events. I stay with Cheryl and Ralph in the Leather Workers Journal. And I teach at home, okay, and I've had many people come to my house, and we just sit out here and we turn the heater on in the winter and suffer through the heat in the summer, because I don't have air conditioning in my shop. So I have people come out. All I require on something like that is that if you're going to do it, I want you to show me that you're dedicated and you really want to learn it. I've had people come out and take a whole day of my time and their time. Both of us decided it just wasn't for them. They just forget it. Because see, braiding can be intimidating at the first. I don't know anybody that would argue with me on that. But you got to stick with it. When that door opens, you go through it. Okay. Now the other part of your question was at trade shows. I've been teaching for about 10, 11 years. I started out teaching down in Wickenburg when they were down there, and then I kept on with teaching up in Prescott. What I would like to do, because everything is so basic, I've got about 4 people that have been with me for about 3 years now, and they've graduated on. They're ready for the next step. And then, I mean, their door has opened. And I would like to take them and go into rawhide. Like I say, I like to teach with the kangaroo because it's a little easier than rawhide. Rawhide can get a little bit stiff, and there's ways of handling that too for beginners. Get yourself a spritzer bottle of water and just do it. I use a concoction of ivory soap and King George's, I think it's called, liquid soap, and I just put that on my strings, on my rawhide. Okay, so anyway, so I would suggest that I'm going to try and talk with the powers to be and see if I can get a 2-day class. So I can take the people who are with me and I can teach them how to cure how to temper the rawhide, and they can start braiding with the rawhide.
Beautiful.
When you're braiding with rawhide, like where I live, it stiffens up and it gets like a spring. It's like a 20-penny spring, you know, and it's just unmanageable. You just can't do anything with it. But if you keep the soap concoction or you spray it, you can get away with it. But I don't. In the summertime, I spend my knife making time, okay? Because this is high desert.
Yeah.
And right now, today, before we're finished, it'll probably be 100 degrees or more.
Do you mind showing us an example of just entry-level braiding and what someone can expect to do right when they start?
Yes, and it will be the beginning what I teach, the basics, real basic.
Perfect. We'll go to your bench and let's take it out.
All right.
Hey everyone, our second sponsor for the Leathercraft Community Podcast Show is none other than the Leather Crafters Journal. Carrying on a tradition of 68 years of publishing the magazine for leather workers and artists worldwide, they also host 3 trade shows in the United States and 1 in Europe. Give them a call or visit their website and use the promo code COMMUNITY and you will receive an additional free magazine added to your subscription at no charge. The Leather Crafters Journal truly sets the standard with staying up to date on all things leathercraft. If it's about leather, it's in the journal. Now, back to our show.
This is a very basic, it's a beginner's setup, and I teach this in my classes, and it's the same braid that you would use for a Riata, and it's in with leather because it's for demonstration purposes, so I did it that way. So the first thing you do when you come into the 4 strings, you've got 2 on each side of the center. You want to grab the high string, which would be, see how this string is higher than this one here? You can see that. I think the camera will pick that up. So that's the high string. You're going to come underneath the project, like so, and you're going to come up between these 2 strings that are on the left side in this case. And you fold it over the inside string, which is called in string, which makes this one the inside. They change back and forth. But this would be the inside string because the inside string comes down through the center, and that's where you cross over after you've gone underneath. Here we go again. High string, back, under, over, and back around over the inside string, and you can pull it tight. Now you can pull it tight here, or you can pull it like this one here. We're getting ready to braid it. We can pull that tight and come through like this. Over and under, under and over. And then with rawhide, I would have soap concoction on there. And now remember, watch. Under, split, over the inside one. Okay? And that's basically it. That's a full Riata.
Hey everyone, the newest sponsor for the Leathercraft Community Podcast Show is Milwaukee Steel Rule Dies. They specialize in manufacturing your leather designs into dies for your clicker machine. They have state-of-the-art equipment that will help you level up your leathercraft products and production with clean-cut leather every single time. Family operated and owned, proudly made in Wisconsin. Contact Milwaukee Steel Rule Dies for all of your leather dye solutions. All right, Ron, let's talk about rawhide. Do you make your own rawhide or do you buy it? And for those who do not know what rawhide is, do you mind explaining what it is?
Okay, I love to joke with people. I have a good time with people. I like people. No, I don't make my own rawhide. The cow makes it. Okay. Now the way it's what it is. It's I make the material to braid with, the strings and what have you. I have an article I wrote on how to make a Riata. There's 22 steps, and in that it shows how we make the steps for rawhide. The way rawhide is untanned leather, and the way you get it, there's many ways. I'll give you one or two, but there's all kinds of ways that it's made, and it's up for controversy. It's a very good subject, controversial subject that people like to talk about. The way I do mine, I get the hide. I try to get it as close to after the cow was butchered as I can, because I want the hide to still be pretty pliable. And in the old days, I don't do this anymore, but I had a gate, a chain link gate, and I would stretch the hide out on that chain link gate. Then I would use, because I have the skills for making knives, I know most people know what a house paint scraper is. Well, I put an edge on it, and then I scrape the fat off the back while it's in the gate. And then I take it, and I cut it in a round circle, cutting the shoulders out, the neck out, and so forth, the haunches. And I get myself a big round piece, and then I take a draw knife, and I cut it, and I'm cutting through the hair. I haven't taken the hair off yet. And I get if I do a full hide, I can get, between 400 and 600 feet at 1 1/8 inch thickness. And I like to do 1 1/8 inch thickness because it gives me a little play for making 1/8 inch strings. Okay, and that's what you use it maybe is the beginning point for if you're doing a set of reins. If you're doing 12 reins, your string's going to be a little thinner and so forth. I mean, a little narrower, so forth. Okay, so we've gotten to that point. Well, now I've got 400 foot, we'll say, a string that's 1 1/8 wide. I take it down to my arena, and I string it out on my arena, and I let it dry. It'll be out there 2 or 3 days, however long it takes. Then I go down, and with 18 different bottles and 10 different knives and a sharpener for the knife, and I break the bottles, and I start scraping the hair off very lightly, enough to get it down to where the hair is gone. But it's still, you have to be careful. I have to braid with the grain, because if I braid against the grain, I lift the grain up and I can dig down into the hide, or I can cause that a weakness there because the grain has now been interfered with. I'll say it that way. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then and when I come out of that, I put it back in. I've got a big 55-gallon drum. I put it back in the drum, put the water in it, let it get its temper back and everything, and then I work from there. And that is rawhide.
Got it.
And that's the way I do it.
So speaking on the characteristics of rawhide, is it better to have like a younger cow's hide or an older cow's, or the thickness of the rawhide? Does that matter for the project you're working on?
Okay, that is a question that it needs to be answered, because if you're going to be a rawhider, the best hide you can get is the old cow that's lived out in the bush, been eating sticks and stones, and he dies of natural causes, and his hide is real thin. So you don't have much that's called skiving, meaning taking the fat off of it. And that isn't done until you've got the strings that I'm talking about, and that's why I do the strings and then take the hair off, because it's easier for me. This is a personal thing. Other people do it different ways. Not to say they're wrong, not to say I'm right, blah, blah, blah. It works for me. So anyway, if you're making, say you're going to make a chair, okay, and you're using rawhide. Have you seen those in the Western stores? They're beautiful things.
Yeah. Yes, they are.
And that's a thick hide. I don't know how they use it, but on the experience I've got, I'm thinking that they would use a shoulder because it's a thicker part of the hide, and they would cut it to shape the chair and whatever. The other one is drums. The Boy Scouts, like in their Indian fair, they like to do make drums and everything. Okay, so and I don't know the thickness on that. I don't know if they even skive it. They might just take it as it is after they've turned it into rawhide.
Yeah.
And everything. So to answer your question, in what I do, thickness means a lot. I like to go down to 1/32, paper thin.
Wow.
Okay, but I've also done thicker.
Yeah.
The other way. And then you see some people, if they're making like an axe handle or something and they want wide strings, they'll make them thicker so that it lasts longer. Because when you're using an axe cutting firewood or something like that, well, then you're going to have more wear and tear on your tool.
Yeah. You make a really mean Riata. It's pretty awesome. Can you explain how long does it take for you to make a Riata? And
I knew you were going to ask that.
And let's talk about like the durability and longevity of something like that, because it's such a unique item, and you don't see too many people making them.
Well, I'm the only one in my part of the world here that makes them. I don't know how many other people make them. I haven't seen any that somebody else has made. My mentor on that would have been Ernie Morris. And Ernie Morris was a Riata man, and he was up by Paso Robles, Templeton, California. He was an artist, and I miss him too. And he had a beautiful wife. She was just such a nice person. Anyway, it takes, I don't know how long it takes. I really don't. I know I cut it down to 5/16. I make a Riata usually around 65 feet in length, about 5/16 in diameter. I do it right here in the shop. And as I'm making it, when I'm pulling my strings tight, I push with one and then lean back and put all my weight into it to make it tight.
Oh.
And then after I'm finished with that, I very gently take a rounded peen hammer, a shoeing hammer, the round end, and I just tap it, and I go through the whole Riata that way. And that way I'm just setting my braid in there.
Yeah.
Okay, now, longevity. I had a Riata that lasted me for years, but it was right at the end of me doing any cow work, so I can't really claim it as anything. What'll happen a lot of times is you drag it in the dirt, you get it in there, and you get a grain of dirt or something, and it acts just like a knife, and it'll do what's called stranding it. So you've got 4 strings braided in there, all of a sudden you've got 3 strings braided. So you have to go back in and splice it. And there's ways you can splice it, but there will always be, like a snake when they eat, they get that big lump in their body.
Yep.
It's the same kind of a deal, but you can cut your string down in a way that you won't have as bad as that. Sometimes I've even done it where you can't tell where I did it. Okay?
Wow.
Now, that is rare for me. I don't like to splice. If I've had people come to me and want me to splice, I say, no, I can make you a new one, and it'd probably be real close in cost, although nowadays I don't know. But for me to splice it, and then if you splice it and you leave a lump in there or something like that, you're going to feel that when you're roping.
Yeah.
And most generally the people that are roping with it, they can feel it. They know what they're doing. How long does it take? I really don't know. I would say 80 hours.
Okay.
That's just
like an average guess, huh?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I might do it in 40. The thing with the Riata is, you're not going to braid it all in one day.
Okay.
So I have a humidor, and it's a big bucket, and I take a smaller bucket with about that much water in it. I put it down in the bottom, and then I put a screen over that. So when I quit, braiding for the day, sometimes I get lazy and it's only 15 minutes. I say, I don't want to do this today. Heck with it, But when I'm finished braiding, I've got it in tamales. And a tamale is a way we'll talk about tamales in a bit, okay? And I set it all on top of that screen, and then I close the top of the bucket, whatever you want to call it, and I tighten it down. I've got a seal around it that tightens it down, so it'll keep the temper right. Now, if you don't do something like that, you come out the next day, and it's like wire, and you won't be able to braid. You'll have to stop, and if you get something that's, I've found that if you get something that's got a nice temper to it, and it dries out, but it's, say, a tamale, say the outer section of it dries out, okay? The inside of it is still tempered. So I've got to go back and redo the whole thing. I can't just dump a tamale in a bucket of water, because then the inside's going to be too soft. And there's a trick to it, and you will develop it. You got to have the temper right. You'll get it not wet enough, it'll be like a spring. You get it too wet, and it'll be like spaghetti. And believe me, everybody who's braided rawhide, I'm certain, has had that happen. Yeah. I would say that. No, I'm sure I'm going to get some flack on that one, but
that's all right.
So, yeah, I'd say in the area of 80 hours.
Cool. Now, do you have any last-minute tips and tricks that you recommend to anybody who's been doing this or who gets their strings tangled around their workspace or anything like that? Any hidden little secrets that you can share that you've learned and acquired over the years?
Yes. And I would say what I'm telling you now is not a secret. Many guys do it, but some guys will tie a ring knot such as this knot, one or two of them together, and then they'll tie a Turk's head over that or a gaucho over that, which gives the knot shape. Okay? What I like to do is I like to take athletic tape. The one they're using nowadays got a little bit of sticky on it, and I will wrap it around, say, a set of reins, okay? And I'll build up my base, and I build up my base if I want to make it like a pineapple knot or something. I go with a wide piece of tape, and then I put shrink it down, and I put little tape. Pretty soon I've got the shape that I need, and I can braid over that. And
Gotcha.
that's I like that way best. And a little thing I do a lot of times, if I'm using darker, I'll dye my tape brown so that you can't see it through the braid. Oh. And you're not supposed to see it through the braid anyway, but just in case.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing is that I didn't mention, like on a knot like this is a practice knot, and I did it in the Turk's head. You want to braid and you want to get your V's straight throughout the knot. See how it will drift a little bit there and there and there. But you can see on this one where it's going straight up and down the knot. If you get that where it's kind of twisting, it'll twist around the knot if you let it, if you don't not aware of it. And your knot doesn't look good at all.
Gotcha.
Doesn't look good at all.
So Ron, to wrap up this interview, what are good ways that people can contact you if they have questions, if they want to talk braiding, or if they're stuck on a knot and they need some tips and tricks? How can they contact you?
Have them send me a Gmail at leathersmith16 .gmail.com.
Got it.
I had to think about that for a minute. And that's probably the best thing. And they can send me out, and then they can give me their phone number, and I can call them back.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easier to, I guess, communicate through email for you.
Yeah, and that'll get it started.
Yep.
That's not to say we quit right there.
Correct.
We just get it. That's a good starting place.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, Ron, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you so much for showing me your shop and showing me all of the braiding and all of the beautiful stuff you have. You have quite an eclectic array of items here, and they're very beautiful, very beautiful.
Thank you.
So, well, you guys, thank you so much for watching another episode of the Leathercraft Community Podcast Show. Take care, and I'll see you on next month's episode. Bye-bye.